Good evening and welcome. Winter has certainly arrived, hasn't it? And tonight we're talking balls, orange, of course, with Les Brad and Chloe Page. Tales too of supporter journeys above and beyond the call of duty to watch our beloved Notts County. Already had a lot of those coming in on our social media channels. Keep them coming. 3 points. I think it's fair to say they were truly Baltic conditions on Saturday. Back into the top 5. 2-week break now before visit of Southend. Your thoughts on Saturday and just how cold you really felt. Hooray, we've got a home draw in a cup tie. Bit of a rarity. Altrincham in the FA Trophy. And advanced news. We've got another Notts first team player coming up in our one-on-one series in the next couple of weeks. Frank Vincent is going to be doing us a turn. Leslie and Chloe, thermals or not tonight?
Go on, Les.
Thermals or not? Well, on Saturday, I wore my usual attire to the match, which was jacket and trousers, but I did wear my Notts County top with the hood on, and that is a fantastic piece of kit. But I must say, it's the coldest that I have ever felt watching a football match. In fact, a couple of the boardroom guests, they stayed inside for the second half to watch it on television. It was bitter cold. I put it down to me probably getting a little bit older, but having spoken to my 2 sons on Sunday, they left in the second half as well because it was too cold. So I think a lot of people were feeling the cold. And I was involved in the man of the match with Cal Cameron, and I actually asked him the question, what was it like out there? And he said he'd experienced lots of very cold games playing in, but nothing like that. The swirling cold wind on the pitch, he said, was unbelievable.
It was truly Baltic, I have to say. Chloe, did you manage to last the 90 minutes?
Yes, I think we about ran to the car afterwards. It was freezing, but where we sit in the Pavis, it was kind of away from everyone, so like 20 seats in every direction. There was no one sat in, so it's kind of us 3 huddled together, but extremely cold. But the 3 points is all that mattered. I think if we'd have lost, I might have headed out a little bit earlier, but no, it was a good game and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I must admit, it was freakishly cold, wasn't it? Les and I were talking about this earlier today. And I mean, I was at the Super Bowl at Minnesota, as you do, 3 or 4 years ago. And it was christened the winter, the Cold Bowl. And it was minus 27. Okay, out there. That is cold. I tell you, I felt genuinely on a par with that, sat in the Pavis on Saturday evening. You could see the flag on top of the County Road Jimmy Cyril stand waving about, and that wind chill. The wind chill was, it was crikey. It was absolutely freezing. I had all my underarm, a subarctic gear on, but it was still ruddy cold. Ian Birchnell says, I must have been in the minority. I was colder at Boreham Wood Tuesday than Saturday. Really? Nah, I don't think so. Your cuckoo clock, Les, it's obvious. It's a pity it's not too cold for your cuckoo clock, isn't it? And we've had quite a few people. 7 o'clock. We started bang on time. We know we did because your clock was going off. Anyway,
the best wishes to the program, Paul, each time.
A few have picked up on that one. Plenty of your epic journeys coming up, which we will be discussing a little bit later in the program. Let's just do a little bit of the technical side of things before we have a bit of a laugh and a recall and a trip down memory lane of our coldest games where fans have travelled in from. There's quite a few good stories there as well. The game Saturday, Les. Again, you see, I enjoy them games, I enjoy them games where we win, even if it's not, 92% possession and all the rest of it. I enjoyed those games more than when we dominate a team and we end up 1-1. Because I've said to you many times before, I just judge a match, solely by a result, really. And we dug in, didn't we? It could have, to be honest with you, it could have gone either way. But we got that goal from a cross of our own. Kyle Wotton does the business. We get 3 points. Ultimately, when you look at the table at the end of the game, and as an ex-pro, you can't do any more than win, can you?
You can't do any more than win. 3 points is the be all and end all at the end of it. When I speak with Ian, he still believes that we're a work in progress, that they work on the training ground, especially around that last third on getting better balls in the box for the attackers to score goals. And I think we are doing better in that respect. We are getting more balls in there to attack. I think we've had a problem where maybe, and I'm not criticising any player here, I think it could be in general, we take one touch too many. It might be beating another man, or it might be a square pass where a shot might have gone in front. But I think we're getting better. And certainly on Saturday, we had enough opportunities, and it's converting those opportunities that's the big issue at the moment, isn't it? I think if we can, there are so many games. I know you were down at Boreham Wood and I was down there, and I'm disappointed. Before the game, I'd have taken 1-1, but I come away disappointed because we've had opportunities that we haven't converted to win the game. And say, Ian has said that they are working on that. They're working on getting the players in there. They're getting better delivery balls into the box, and we saw that. Ruben had a couple of good chances, didn't he, from attacks with balls coming into the box. We haven't seen too much of that, so maybe it's a shock to him, and maybe if we keep practicing, he'll bang them in.
Yeah, that's a point being picked up on by some of our Magpie Circle flock. Ian Bertram says, "How did Ruben miss that header? Les wouldn't have missed that for sure. Don't become leading scorer by missing sitters like that." Have you offered Les a bit of heading practice to Ruben yet, or not?
Well, I haven't seen him to speak to. I will ask him the question when I bump into him. But Tommy Lawton educated me in my early days at Notts, and he taught me how to plant that ball on my forehead, and he told me where I should be aiming that ball when it comes across, and it was always low. It was always aiming it down to the line. That's where the goalkeeper's going to find it difficult, and just make sure you hit the target. I haven't spoken to Ruben, but maybe he was looking to try and make sure the goalkeeper couldn't get it and plant it into a corner. Whereas just a straightforward header would have beaten him with power.
Never mind. We know you would have buried it. Chloe, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was. Look, it wasn't the best one to watch. We can all admit that. I thought after the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I thought we were going to steamroll them. I thought we had played with such a rhythm. And it was one of them where every ball was kind of dropping to us as well. I thought it might be one of them games that if we get one, we'll get a few. And then like Les says, you miss a lot of chances. At least chances were being created. There was more for me, chances wise, than there was at Boreham Wood. I know we should be converting some of them, and we talk about Rubens, and it's one of them. I think if you could pick any two players from the whole team to be on the end of that, it'd be Ruben or Wotton. And it felt like at that point of the game that it wasn't going to happen. It was going to be another draw. But then obviously Wotton comes to the rescue again. I must say as well, I think it's one of Kyle Roberts' better games as of recent. I think we're seeing more and more of him come into the game. I mean, the cross for the goal, he's got a player right next to him, and it's right on Wotton's head. Again, for the chance for Rodriguez. So it's these bits that's kind of making the difference for us, and he's creating more chances for us. So I think we've got to start giving credit to him, because I know he's had a lot of stick in the last few weeks, and absolutely that he's going to start now. And I know a lot of people were tweeting, and I've seen a few comments that maybe his position is out on the wing, and I think that's probably where we see the best of him. It gives him the option to cut inside, but also stick across in as well, which he's very good at, creates a lot of chances going that way. And it also gives Ruben a bit more room. We all know that Ruben tends to play his better games with all of that room that he's given in a free role, whether that's alongside Wootton or just behind him. And if you put Cal on the wing, then that just gives Ruben even more room. But yeah, it was enjoyable, and maybe we'd have been saying something different if we hadn't have converted one of them chances and it had been another draw. But it's a great win in the bitter cold, and it can't have been easy out there. I don't think we take into consideration how windy it was and how cold it was for the players. But yeah, like I say, a great win. I know a lot of teams above us. I think everyone above us actually has a game in hand, but I'd much rather have the points on the board and take a bit of confidence going to Southend at home as well.
Chris Jordan says, Wootton's header was textbook, as was Cal's ball into him. Quality moment. Indeed, it was. Sam Slocombe. Amazing, isn't it? There's always a scapegoat every season on social media. And Sam seems to have come in for a bit over the past 10 days, 14 days from various of our trolls. Les, I mean, I thought Sam made some pretty key saves at key moments on Saturday.
Well, I was asked with 15 minutes to go who was my man of the match, and that Sam was the man I picked out. I thought he'd had a fantastic game for us and made some key saves at the right time. Sam's had quite a break, hasn't he, with the injury that he picked up. And it's always difficult when you've had a break, coming back into it again. And I thought he did really well for us. No criticism at all from me.
One debutant, Connor Parsons, Chloe. Chris Gosling says, considering he only met the team 24 hours before, 2 weeks on the training pitch, and he looks a useful 24 hours. 2 weeks on the training pitch, he looks a useful addition. What were your thoughts on Mr. Parsons?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he had an impact. He looked like he fit in, which is a really big thing. Like someone's just mentioned, when you don't play for, well, he hadn't played a game for us. However long he'd been there, it wasn't long at all, and he was straight into the team. It shows a lot, and he just fit right in. He looks like he kind of understands the system. Definitely in that first half looked like not out of place and added a lot to our game, especially like I said in that first 20-25 minutes when we were dominating. Can stick a cross in as well. And I watched his interview saying that he's not necessarily a wing back, but he's been learning that role. I think he was at Wickham, is it? Or someone like that?
Yeah.
That he's been learning the role from, which is kind of where he's going to be playing for us. But a great addition. I think we was talking last week about what we want to see loan-wise come in. We was talking about January, but obviously he's coming now. And I think with Dion being out as well, I imagine he's injured because he was dropped from the whole squad. I don't know the story behind that. But yeah, more competition for place is exactly what we want. I don't know whether we'll get the opportunity to maybe extend his contract. We'll see how that goes in January. But yeah, I've got kind of no negatives to say about him, really. I enjoyed it, seeing him and a little bit of freshness into the squad. It was nice.
Les, you've got to be a half-decent player to wear a man bun, haven't you? Yeah? You know, with the old little tied up in the knot. Who was the last Notts player to have a man bun? Come on, I'll put you on the spot. Chloe will know this.
No, I can't think of one.
Do you not think of one? Can we not think of one out there on the floor? Can you not think who it was, Chloe?
No. I'm sure I will if someone says it.
Follower of fashion, millennial. Alan Smith. Alan Smith had one, didn't he?
Yeah.
What do you think, Les, of him?
I agree with what Chloe's just said. You know, it's going to be really difficult. You come into a club and maybe that position that he's been asked to play was a little bit alien to him, and it is a difficult role to play that side on the right hand side, the wing back role. I thought he did okay. I think he needs a little bit more time, more game time. But yeah, I think moving forward, he's going to be a great acquisition to the club.
And actually, yes, I stand corrected. Mfol, Chris Jordan are both right. Reeves had one as well, didn't he? Reeves, centre midfielder last season. So there's a few of them about. Certainly, they say if you make a mistake, you certainly get spotted, don't you, with one of them on. So, but anyway, all the best to him. News today: Eli Sammers missed out on this FIFA sort of whatever it is. Chloe, correct?
Yeah, the Puskas Award. Yeah, I saw it earlier. I think Charlie Slater tweeted it, a justice for Eli. I mean, that's one of the games, along with the Dagenham in the Cup, that I really wish I was there for. Obviously, we had a whole season of COVID, and if I could pick a game to be at, it would be the Dagenham game or the game that he scored the whatever kind of goal you want to call it. But yeah, probably a little bit robbed. And I saw someone in the comments saying that they've looked through the kind of nominees' goals and said it's better than at least half of them. So maybe they'll have a little look. But yeah, a little bit disappointing.
Mfog says, I'm glad actually he's pointed this out. Has anyone read that Athletic article or not? Apparently, Ruben has a release clause in his contract. Personally, he says, not vindictively, of course, I wouldn't believe a word that comes out of Paul Taylor's typewriter or laptop, or his mate Daniel Taylor, who seems to spend most of his time complaining that Notts fans worry about Forest, and then spending half of his time writing negative stories about Notts. Shall we just? I want to clear this up, Les. This absolute tripe that comes out from Daniel Taylor and regurgitated by Paul Taylor about Forest, oldest football league club in the world. It's complete nonsense. What is a football league? So are Forest now trying to claim that the English Football League is the only league in the world? Yeah. And if you're in the Premier League, you're then not the oldest football league club in the world. Because you can't have it all ways. Isn't the National League a football league? Aren't 90% of the teams professional? It's a complete fallacy. And, you know, I think for someone of Daniel Taylor's esteemed standing in journalism, he really should know better. And I think it's incredibly petty by those two. It's not so much Forest. Forest don't have a problem. They're not claiming the title or anything as a club. But I think those two have a lot to answer for with all their petty and vindictive snipings and all the rest. As it was in this book, the most accurate description, this was written in 2016, before we got relegated, Notts County are the world's oldest professional football club, founded in 1862, full stop. And it's worth also pointing out, without being vindictive, Nottingham Forest were only allowed into the Football League in something like 1892, when the fellow league clubs approached Notts County to say, do you mind Forest being re-elected into the Football League? Because it would then have meant two clubs from Nottingham being in the league, which was very unusual at that time. And Notts said they would not make an objection. And on the basis of Notts not making an objection, Forest were then allowed into the Football League. Now, I don't think any of us have got any problems with that, but we should just square that circle away. As for Ruben's release clause, I'm not exactly sure about that. And I doubt very much whether Paul Taylor would know any more about Notts County than I do. He certainly seems to know very little about Nottingham Forest these days, he says, without a hint of sarcasm or irony. Right, let's put that one to the bench, shall we?
Can I just come in, Paul?
Go on, yeah.
I believe what you were just talking about, in 1888, the first league was formed, of 11 clubs, of which Notts were one. Yeah. And then 4 years later, more clubs wanted to join, and the second league was formed. Yeah. But the original rules were that only one club from the city were allowed in. Forest asked if they could go into the first division, and Notts County allowed that to happen.
Hey, Les, you put it far better than I did. And I think, you know, as I say, I don't think, despite what a lot of people say, that relations between Notts and Forest are bad. I think they've always been decent, and both clubs have helped each other out. You would know that Jimmy Cyril and Brian Clough were very close. I just think it a little bit sad that little journalists like Daniel Taylor and Paul Taylor always look to stick the knife in and create a little bit of division, which personally I don't think exists between the two clubs.
Well, on Saturday evening, I was honoured to be in the boardroom, and I saw the owners of Notts County happily talking with the chairman of Nottingham Forest, who was a guest of the club sitting in the director's box. So, don't know what they were talking about, but
they're probably after Ruben. You can join the list, eh? Oh dear. Right, okay. Let's enough of the serious stuff. Let's go a little bit more light-hearted. So we've all been talking about the weather. We as Brits love to talk about the weather, don't we? One of the big things in society in the past few years, or in the past few months, has been Insulate, Eco Britain, whatever they're called, staging sit-down protests on blocking motorways. Now, Notts County fans, it's nothing new, is it, Leslie, for staging sit-down protests? Notts fan, they're a big family of Notts fans. One of the Cumber Patchers did this quite a long time ago. I'll cue you to take up the rest of the story.
Yes, we were playing Burnley at Meadow Lane. Can't remember what. It was obviously in the winter months, and the snow had been coming down. In those days, matches very seldom got called off for snow. Usually, the lines were brushed, so you could see where the lines were. And if snow had fallen, it was generally soft underneath. If matches were called off, it was because the pitch was frozen. And in those days, there wasn't sophisticated machinery around that had rolled pitches flat. You probably still got some stud marks, some divots in there that had frozen and made it quite dangerous. But on the match against Burnley, we had a bit of snow, but the pitch was frozen and the temperature dropped towards half time. And when we went in at half time, we were told that the match was likely to be called off because of the conditions. And one of the Notts supporters, Paul Cumberpatch, a friend, he decided he wasn't happy with that and he was going to go and protest. So he went and sat on the centre circle. I can remember walking out to the touchline with some of the other lads, and the police were stood down there, and somebody said to them, "What are you going to do about it?" And they said, "Nothing, he'll come off pretty soon." And he did as well. He was frozen out there.
I just have this vision.
We've had some real stories. I can remember a really depressing story, and that was in my early years with Notts, and we'd drawn Runcorn in the cup away in the first round. And when we got there, the pitch was frozen and there was no way it could be played, but the referee decided it was going to be played, and there was quite a slope on the pitch. Cut long story short, Runcorn won the game 1-0, and we were frozen when we went in. But we didn't know till after the match that there wasn't showers, and the bath was a communal bath to be shared by both teams. You can imagine how that was. Yeah, exactly. I think I gave it a miss and just put my gear on and got and sat on the coach.
I mean, you just, we couldn't go back much further in time, but the guy that scored a hat-trick for Notts in the FA Cup final in 1894, Logan, Jimmy Logan, I think it was only a year or so later, he was playing somewhere around Loughborough way, and Notts forgot to take, I think it was any change of clothing or something. So the players all had to sit in their match-worn kit from that day in 1895. And Jimmy sadly got pneumonia and died. You know, so crikey, that's the ultimate, isn't it? That's the ultimate. Yeah.
Can I come in with just one more as well? Because I learned something on Saturday that I hadn't heard before. One of the former players that were the guest speakers on Saturday, we had Brian Bates and our former goalkeeper Mick Rose. I don't know whether you know, but he holds a record as the first professional footballer to be substituted. Back in 1965, teams played with 11 players, no substitutes. And in August of that year, 65-66 season, teams were allowed to have a substitute who could only come on if a player got injured, not a tactical substitution. And he was playing for Charlton at the time, and he got clattered, and he had to go off, and he was the first player ever to be substituted.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I learned it on Saturday listening to the interview.
Okay, plenty of comments coming in. Chris Jordan says Notts fans should start a new movement, insulate Meadow Lane. That's Mr. Cumberbatch starting off the sit-down protests in the 1970s on the frozen pitch at half-time of a postponed game of Notts County versus Burnley. Max Seth, I thought this would crop up. Chesterfield, frost covers update. They're halfway to their aimed for total. Chris Jordan, good reply. Excellent news, Max. Hope they cover the half we're attacking on the 23rd. Very good, very good. Slight tangent, Chloe, because I guess this is kind of, I think there is a split in the younger fans and the older fans. How important for you to progress in the FA Trophy? Gary Wardle says, what's the point of even winning the FA Trophy if we don't get promotion? Ian Birchnell says, I'd like 2 trips to Wembley. Chris Gosling, I'm not bothered about the trophy. The FA Cup was different. What's your take on the trophy, Chloe?
It's something that we can realistically win, is the way that I see the FA Trophy. The last 2 seasons have proven that. We should have probably have done better in both attempts. But that just shows me it's one of them you can realistically win. The FA Cup's always good to be in for the money, but you're not going to get too far as a National League club in that. And we're out of that. So all I see it as is we now have 2 focuses, the league and the FA Trophy. I get the argument that people want to get promotion. Of course, that's the main aim of the season. I know a lot of people really couldn't care less about the FA Trophy. But would you rather have neither? I think that saying that you're not going to even try is kind of pointless. I agree that Ian will probably rest a couple of players. I think that's probably very reasonable. The players that we've got on the bench and our fringe players should be still good enough to give Altrincham a game, especially at home. It's one of them where, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't, if I had the choice to get promoted or win the FA Trophy, of course I'd rather get promoted, but that's not the way that it works. If we don't go for the trophy and then don't get promoted, you've kind of got neither. So don't get me wrong, I always love a good cup run. I know we've ended up with someone in our own league, which is quite typical, but yeah, it's just another game. Ian will see it as another tactical game to get the players playing how he wants to play. Again, a win in that actually helps you in the league as long as you don't pick up injuries. And it's a Saturday game, so it's not like it's a Saturday, Tuesday. It would be a gap in the league. And I think the best way to carry on through the season is keep playing. Don't get me wrong, it gets a bit much when it is Saturday, Tuesday, and that's when you pick up your injuries. But I think the players would much rather be playing, whether that's in a cup competition or whether that's in the league, they'd rather be playing. So I think, see how we go against Altrincham. And once you start getting through the rounds, you soon realise it's a very quick competition and you don't end up playing that many games. Like I say, we've got to a semi-final and a final, I think. And it didn't take a lot really for us to get there. So why not? I don't get me wrong as well. It's massive to see Notts at Wembley. I've never done it personally. The one season that we have played at the new Wembley, it was COVID, so which is typical. So we can't just be giving up a chance to win a trophy. I think it's silly to just throw it away. But again, I wouldn't be putting everything we've got at it, especially this round and the next round. And then if you see yourselves progressing, that's when you go for it. But you can't. It's just one of them. But if you kind of palm this trophy away and then you don't even get playoffs, then it's a lose-lose situation. So you just play it. You play every game to win. I don't care what competition it's in, and I'm sure all the players and the manager feel the same.
Les, I know whenever I ask a player from your generation, and I think even as recently as Neil Bishop, every player to a man would always say they would prefer to play 2 games a week because it means less training. So they wouldn't actually want to play 1 game, have 4 days of training, and then a game. In terms of the more physical demands that are put on players now, sports science, nutrition, do you think the modern day footballer, from when you're speaking to the lads, do they prefer to have 1 game a week and prepare for that? Or do you still think they want to play 2 games a week?
No, I think they want to play 2 games a week. One of the factors is if you're on a winning run, then you want to keep it going. I'm not so sure then it would be key if you were losing each match you're losing, then they probably wouldn't be so keen to play in the midweek. But if you're on a decent run, you want to keep playing naturally. And I think it's well within the capabilities of the modern player, the fitness. It's there. They should be able to do that as well.
Okay, let's see. It will be interesting to see that team selection.
If I can just come back in on the point that Chloe made about playing on the Saturday, I don't think that game with Altrincham can take place on the Saturday because Forest are at home, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, and it's not likely to be pushed back, is it? Because we're playing Chesterfield on the Tuesday.
I think that's a Friday night game. I think that's a Friday night game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going? Has that been confirmed yet? Or?
It's not yet, no. But I mean, I'm looking at the options. I would say most likely that would be a Friday night.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, like unofficially, but kind of from what I've heard from multiple different people, like you say, it's looking like being the Friday with a Tuesday game. But we'll wait and see for kind of the official announcement.
Altrincham would need to agree to that as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Kelvin Hallam a chance to go to Wembley. Who would not want to take that, whether it's the FA Trophy or playoff final or maybe both? Chris Gosling, with the way the likes of Wrexham and Stockport are finding form, we need to be on our game every week in the league. Gary Wardle, to have won both those cups, as we're setting the record attendance, are meaningless frills if not promoted. David Shorter, it's a big fixture pile-up. If on Friday, says David Shorter, it will clash with the Lifeline dinner. I bet Lynn in the shop's having kittens at the moment when this game is going to be played. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Dear me. We'll have to move it to a Thursday. Lads, all right?
Yeah.
Oh dear me. Lots more comments coming in. I want to now a little bit of chat about coldest games where you've been, epic journeys, those sorts of things. And the reason I mention that is because a gentleman came up to chat to me on Saturday evening, and I've christened him. Well, his first name is Dan, but I've christened him Dan from Dunfermline. Believe it or not, obviously he's based in Inverkeithing, over the Forth Bridge in Scotland, and it's taken as read that he drives to and from Notts for home games all the time. He took it a stage further for the trip to Eastleigh, where he caught a plane from Scotland and landed at Southampton Airport Parkway Station, airport, which is next to the station, which is next to the ground, watched us lose, and then caught a flight back to Scotland. As you do, Les, as you do. And I do think that is very much above and beyond. But while in Scotland, he watches Dunfermline, because they're not far away, who told me playing black and white stripes. And of course, we're the Pies, aren't we? Come on, you Pies. Dunfermline are nicknamed the Pars. So he's watching a team playing black and white stripes and cheering on either the Pies or the Pars about twice a week all season. Now, I don't know how far all of you travel, or indeed wherever you are listening into the show tonight. Let us know. Let's just hear some of the trips. I know there is a guy, because you've told me this, Les, who commutes regularly from Ireland and gets up at 4 or 5 in the morning, playing in, playing out. Every game is a season ticket holder, so that takes a bit of doing. Rudy Hulsman, who flies the Notts County flag in Belgium, This was a good one. Don't know if it's an epic journey, but I drove with my son and a mate from Brussels to Gillingham for the deciding relegation game in 2015. And we lost, didn't we, Les? Cool, dear. Not epic, but a very long drive home. I've got to say, that takes a bit of doing. It's bad. It was bad enough navigating the M1 closed, A1 closed, A52 closed from Boreham Wood last week. But driving back from Gillingham to Brussels after we've dropped down a division takes some doing. On the subject of cross-continental or cross-European, Jordan Steen Fisher, my brother travelled from Dortmund to Wembley to see us in a playoff final. I've done a 340-mile round trip to Bristol Rovers, lost 3-2 and never saw a goal. I was stuck in traffic till half-time, then went in the wrong end, and when I moved, I missed the last goal. Unlucky there. In terms of cold snaps and games that people have been travelling to, Ian Cooks, he says, Sunderland away 1995. Got back from Australia on the Wednesday, 90-degree heat, and then stood at the old Roker Park. Yes, remember it well, in a blizzard, but at least we won 2-1. Any visit to Oldham is always cold. Absolutely. Brian Stubbs, your teammate, Les, tells a good story about Jimmy when you were at Oldham, when it snowed heavily one game. And I think you were drawing and it was snowing and Jimmy was shouting and bawling to the ref because there was so much white on the ground to change the colour of the ball. So the ref duly obliged and brought an orange ball out in the second half. It was 0-0 at half time. Second half, we lost 3-0. And Jimmy never wanted to play with an orange ball ever again in professional football. Yeah. And talking of which, what else didn't he like when it was freezing cold on the training ground?
What else didn't he like when it was freezing cold?
You couldn't get away with tracksuit bottoms, could you?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, that was it. We, this time of year, if it was a training day today, we would all get geared up with the tracksuits and we would go up to the training ground. We were allowed to warm up in full tracksuit gear. And then when it came to the crunch, when we started to work, tracksuit bottoms off. Nobody could wear tracksuit bottoms. That was Jimmy. He said, "You're going to play football on the Saturday. Are you going to wear tracksuit bottoms?" No, so you're not going to wear them here. It's, yeah, he did it properly. Yeah.
Will Gresley says, coldest away game I can remember was at Walsall, January 2012. Hughes scored the winner. Martin Allen sacked a few days later. I thawed out a few weeks after that. Simon Ellis, worst ever day out to watch Notts was just before Christmas. In 98 or 99, we were stuck in an old open stand behind the goal at Gillingham in weather that felt like the wind was picking up the entire North Sea and dumping it on us. Even worse, Notts lost 4-0. When we got back to the car, it steamed up so badly we couldn't see out. And despite the 3.5-hour drive to get back to Nottingham with the heaters on full blast, we were still shivering and our clothes were still dripping wet when we got home. Rick Lowe, more recently, I reckon Grimsby away in the Nolan playoff season was colder than Dagenham, but I had just walked along the coastal path from Cleethorpes with a freezing wind blowing off the North Sea. Stupid idea. Ian Marston in 2008 did Eastbourne to Notts and back in the day to see Richard Butcher secure, rest in peace, Richard, secure our league status. Left 9 a.m. in the morning, got back at 9 a.m, was at uni down there, but no way was I missing that game. What else have we got? Kelvin Hallam comes from Boston in Lincolnshire every game. What else have we got? Ian Birchinall, I'm only a 50-mile round trip from home games, so not that for compared to some. It's all about making the effort and the journey. So well done to Ian and everyone that has to make any form of journey to get to Meadow Lane. Chris Gosling, I'm a 100-mile round trip in, and it sounds like some do more than us combined. Ian Bircham says, I remember a snowball fight inside Saltergate with Chesterfield fans. Don't remember how cold it was, though. Dale Pikett, my friend James, a season ticket holder, drives from Weymouth every other week for the home games. And I did 15 years of a 200-mile round trip with my two lads before I moved closer to home. Chris Jordan, I was in that snowball fight too. Goalie got involved. Was it Cherry or Leonard? Perhaps Jürgen Halligan, 50-mile round trip. You're about an 8-mile round trip from Arnold, Chloe, and about 150 from Manchester, where you are currently, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So at some point in the week, I'll make the trip from Manchester. But yeah, it's not very far from Arnold at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that all the fans make such great efforts to travel up and down the country. And if we can give you a brief mention tonight, we gladly will for your efforts in following the club. And of course, following the club now, you know, when I was a student in Sheffield, it was relatively easy on the basis that we were playing Liverpool, Manchester United, whoever else. Now it's a little bit more difficult. You know, it's a little bit more challenging when you've got to go to Eastleigh, Boreham Wood, Dover. Lime, that's another trip and a half, isn't it? Kelvin Hallam, what percentage of Notts fans actually live in Notts? Maybe worth a poll. When I was a director, I did commission some research just to have a look. And I've always, in the city of Nottingham boundaries, so draw a 4 or 5 mile radius around the city of Nottingham. And you're looking then at about Notts to Forest, about 3 to 1. So 3 Forest fans to 1 Notts fan, which isn't too bad. But as you go further out in the county, Forest then hoover up a lot more fans. So quite a decent percentage of the Notts fan base is as a local club is within the immediate vicinity. And 2 or 3 of the real hotbeds of Notts fans are the east side of Nottingham. So Carlton, Gedling, Burton Joyce, that's a particular hot spot. Quite a few out in Arnold as well. Clearly with Forest, West Bridgeford going south there tend to be a lot more Forest fans. But yeah, a large proportion of our season ticket holders, 4 or 5 mile radius around the city of Nottingham. And if you're looking for a real hot spot on Notts fans, you look on the east side, Carlton, Gedling, those sorts of areas. A lot of Notts fans there. Jürgen Halligan used to get a train from Shrewsbury to Nottingham when I was in the RAF at Shawbury for 2 years. Still had a season ticket. John Parr went from, hang on, I've lost that one. Went from Lerwick on Shetland to Meadow Lane once. Crikey, that's a trek, isn't it? That's a trek. Kelvin Hallam, I've always come back to watch Notts since I was 6. My uncle used to come, then he got a job as scout at Derby, and he's now currently with the under-18s as a scout, but we have always been black and white. Max Seth, just to say I'm not spouting complete rubbish, I'm from Gedling. On my street alone, there's about 15 Notts fans. There you go. There's proof in it, yeah. And of course, I suppose years ago, Les, Burton Joyce especially was a big Notts hotbed. Jimmy Cyril lived there, didn't he? And a few of the other Notts players, and it was a big football community out there, including, to be fair, Baxter from Forest and several other Forest lads.
Yeah, Burton Joyce was a very popular place to live. Back in the days when I was playing, obviously the Mountaineers lived in Burton Joyce as well as a Cyril family. Don Masson.
Yeah, Don was out there.
They were over that side of that neck of the woods. Yeah, so yeah, it's a popular side to live. And just going back to your call on travelling in to watch football, did you see the story yesterday of the fella from America flying in, Tottenham fan? Went to Burnley, 4,500 miles. He wasn't very happy when he got here, and the game
was off, wasn't it? Now then, it's not quite America, Chloe. You must have nightmares about going to.
I don't know. What are you going to say?
File. How many times did you make that trip?
Oh my God! No, that's completely erased from my memory because I think I did it 3 times, and each time
you got there 3 times, didn't you?
Yeah, so each time I got a little bit closer. The first time I was on the train and we jumped off at Preston because we found out just before we got to Preston. The next time I was actually in Fylde, and it wasn't even raining. We were sat in a pub, and then next minute I get a tweet. I thought someone was taking the mick, but they weren't. And then the third time, but luckily I can't complain because I know there will be a lot of people that came from Nottingham all 3 times. I was only Manchester, so I was halfway. I've got to hold my hands up, and it was only an hour journey for me, but still one that I'd love to forget. But I have nightmares going. The thought of one being called off like a Dover or a Torquay and getting there, and because I think my granddad tells a story about going to Torquay, or was it Brighton? It might have been Brighton actually. And he put a full special train on, and they made all the Notts fans stay down there. They refused to take the train back early, and all the Notts fans had to kind of go around Brighton for a few hours until they could get the train back. So no, luckily, but I was kind of hoping, obviously we got Altrincham. I'd have probably preferred it to be away with it only being 10 minutes down the road from me, but we'll always take a home fixture.
Very good.
Right, and rings true with me with a cup game where we pulled up and then we had to stay in the coach and then the game was called off and then we just drove off back again.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah, I was on. I think I was the one on the same with the train, Les. I think just about every Notts fan of that generation was on that train, that special train, you know. Not so many could get down on the Tuesday night when we won in midweek, didn't we? 3 days later.
What was that year?
I'd have been 13 or 14. That would have been about 76, 77.
76, 77.
Yeah, about then. Don't hold me to that. I'm sure someone will know. Ian Birchall, I got to foul 3 times too. Second time I was in the KFC having pre-match food and filed young lads told us it was off. Dan Westwell, our photographer, was in there too. Kelvin Hallam had a Premier Inn book that night. Shane Walker's a new name. Born in Kelverton, left and joined the Royal Navy, brackets submarines. Always got to see the Magpies when back home. Now living on the Solent, always there when I can. Very well done, Shane. Thanks for your support. I bet that's probably the first submariner. I think that's the correct phrase, Les and Chloe. I think that's the first Notts County submariner I've ever communicated with. I don't know of any others. I remember there was always the stories about Phil Stant when he played for us, wasn't there? Because he fought in the Falklands, and that kind of like developed into he was special forces, which I don't believe was correct. But you know that I remember that one had a life of its own. But well done to Shane. Ian Birchall. I went to Dartford for a midweek game. Went down in the back of an escort van on a mattress. Sounds a bit sinister, this. Got to the ground and was a waterlogged pitch. Had a pint and came back. Chris Jordan. I must be one of the few pies who grew up in West Bridgford during the Clough era and chose Notts. What in God's name was I thinking? You chose well, Christopher. You chose well. I need to mention Lee Brearley as well. I've not got the photo. He's not been able to message us recently, but he has been. He's one of our biggest members of our flock. And as you do, he's building a pub in his garden, Les. And he sent me some photos of his pub. And he's rigged it up with YouTube so he can sit in his pub and watch the Magpie Circle podcast. But he ain't quite worked out on the laptop how to get the messaging system on the right-hand side just yet. I don't know. But he wanted me to share that with you. So I don't know whether it'll be an opening of the pub. It might be the only pub opening in about 3 weeks' time. So we'll have to publish the secret address and we'll all go down there. Yeah. Chris and his new bar. So good. That's all good stuff from our flock. Nice to be a little bit more, shall we say, light-hearted. Sometimes we can all get a little bit too serious with things, but good to have a little bit of light-hearted banter. Ian Birchall got within 20 minutes of Pompey when it was rained off. We decided to go to Bournemouth versus Swindon. Swindon then sold out and wouldn't let us in. As we couldn't prove we were from Bournemouth. I remember a long time ago. I don't think Jimmy ever allowed the team to go on the supporters train when we used to run trains in the 70s, Les. Forest, I believe, Clough, they used to travel on the supporters train to away games, believe it or not. But I mean, I've got many memories of going on trains like Plymouth away, there and back on a train in a day, not special, with 300-400 people. All over the country used to run the trains. And there was one game, it was Boxing Day morning. It would have been about 74, 75. So you'd have probably been there, Les. So we're playing Brentford away, 11:30 kickoff, Boxing Day morning, special train. I don't know whether your granddad would have been on this, Chloe. But the train was left about 7 o'clock on Boxing Day morning. It trundled all the way around London and pulled up into Brentford station about 10:30 for an 11:30 kickoff. Can you remember that one?
Is that one? Did we win that 1-0?
I'm not sure which one all we drew. We didn't lose.
Was Roy Brown in goal? I think I was injured, and I think I was in the stand watching that game.
Yeah,
if I remember rightly. Or left out the team. I might have been the odd one out and watching it there. But there's something I can, recall about that match.
Yeah. Kelvin Allen, can you imagine if players got onto trains and buses, same as fans now? There will be some big uproar. It's quite interesting. Life is turning full circle at the big clubs now, Kelvin. So Manchester United, Manchester City, whenever they play in London, they go on a train. They've got an ordinary service train, and they will take 1 or 2 first-class compartments, coaches, and they block book that, and the players all go in there. So you often see in the newspapers on Friday and Saturday photos of the players at a local Manchester station waiting to catch the London train. And a lot of the clubs now have their players on the trains because they say it's a lot easier to roam about within their own private space, and they get picked up at a special station just outside London. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, back in the day, Kelvin, certainly Clough and Forest players used to travel on the supporters train to a game.
Throughout my times playing at the club, we never ever went on a train with Jimmy Cyril. It was coach travel, and if the coach travel happened to be more than an hour and a half, we would travel on the day before. We would arrive at the destination, which wouldn't be anywhere any further than half an hour's drive to the ground. We would stay in a hotel. We would have a meal at 7 o'clock in the evening, and then we would go through a routine the next morning. Those that wanted breakfast could have it. Those that didn't, they didn't have to get up. But we would all have to report into the room at 12 o'clock, where we would have a steak, and then we would get to work on a talk about the game, how we're going to deal with the match. That was routine for every single away match.
Jürgen Halligan just jogged my memory. I used to go on the train specials too. Played Sunderland away, and the train broke down, and we lost to a Dennis Stewart goal. I can't remember the Dennis Stewart, but yeah, I remember that Sunderland game. I think it was a cup replay, and massive supporters train rammed out, and it conked out round about, I never forget it, Castleford, Jürgen, and we were stuck in Castleford for about 2 hours. And I think the train finally pulled into some little station just outside Roker Park just before half time. So we saw the second half of the game, then got back on the train and come back again. So that one, the best of days. I was only a young kid then. Chris Gosling, I remember going to an away game in the 90s, and on the way saw Phil Turner stood in a lay-by waiting for the team bus to pick him up. Well, I assume that's what he was doing there. Yeah, there's always the thing, wasn't it, Les? Fans don't necessarily realise not all players lived in the area, and so often, a lot of times, players will be at all sorts of different motorway service stations, roundabouts just off motorways, waiting for the team bus to pull up. And they got the boots in the bag, and then they get on the bus. Yeah, it happened quite a bit.
Well, say going back to my days, that didn't happen so much, because when you sign a contract to play for the club, you have to move into the area. You're probably talking a little later on when players could live in Leicester, could live in Birmingham, could live in Sheffield and travel in. I can't think of, probably David Needham was the furthest traveller in that squad. That was Leicester. That was allowed, but nothing further than that. You had to move into the area.
Max says, I read something about the ticket prices at Kings Lynn with their Boxing Day, aren't we? Ridiculous prices for National League. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure most of us will be paying them because it means we can actually go to Kings Lynn for the first time officially in the National League. It's Boxing Day, so I think there will be a bumper turnout for that. Ian Birchland says, Wolves away in the 80s, got lost, car overheated on Spaghetti Junction, missed 30 minutes, and we were losing 3-0 by the time we got in. Went to wrong end and was sat in the home game. Tim Alsop, I remember going to Aldershot one winter from RAF Valley in Anglesey. So another member of the forces, as a Notts fan. Game was called off, but got invited round for a meal with a local. I returned midweek for the rearranged fixture. Some great little old tales and stories from years gone by. Any memories for you, Chloe? Obviously, you've not got such a longevity of following the club, but anything that sticks in your mind so far?
Probably coldness wise, I'd probably be going with the Grimsby one. I think that was pretty chilly, and Boreham Wood in the cup a few seasons ago, it absolutely lashed it down. That any game where you're stood uncovered and it's chucking it down, no matter what time of the year, is going to be cold. In terms of, not really, other than Fylde, everything's gone quite smoothly. Kind of journeys wise, always made it in time, if just. So I don't think there's been any that I've missed, but maybe wishing that I'd missed a bit of it. Like the Swansea game, that was a long trip on a Tuesday night with sixth form the next day, but it was about falling asleep in class in the morning. But no, it's gone pretty smoothly for me, but obviously I've got a long way to go, and I'm sure there'll be more stories along the way.
Oh, there'll be plenty of disappointment and heartache, Chloe. Don't worry about that. Trevor Scanlon, if you remember, Paul, yes, it's true. I arranged for a train to pick up Notts fans after an evening kick-off at Stockport, but the match was called off. Yes, that was going to be the return of the Notts County Magpie Specials, as they used to be called. 12 months ago, we're playing Stockport midweek, and Trevor was going to lay on a train to get us all back after the game, which would have been very good. But match called off, or was it played but fans were banned from travelling? Something like that, wasn't it? With COVID, I think something to do with that. Now, Chris Jordan is saying here, and I don't know whether you've got any advanced knowledge of this in the ticket office, Chloe. £26 to stand up at Kings Lynn. Have you heard anything on that?
I haven't heard anything from the club, just because it's quite a way yet. It's usually a couple of weeks before. But I did hear there was something a couple of months ago on Twitter. Something to do with the chairman was kind of in a bit of an altercation with one of our fans. I can't remember exactly the ins and outs, but in my head, I've got a figure of around £25. Something to do, I can't remember what their chairman was saying, but something to do with one of our fans and not letting them in on Boxing Day. But I remember it was around £25, so which is crazy. I mean, I know most clubs are kind of £20 roughly, but £25 to stand up is extortionate. But like you say, I'm sure people will be paying it to get the ground ticked off.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem for National League, and look, we don't know this 100%, but if it is £26 to stand up at a National League game, that to me, I think it is pushing it. We have had the chairman, Stephen Cleave, from Kings Lynn on the show. I think it was over a year ago now. And to be fair, he spoke very well and has clearly done a very, very good job at Kings Lynn from when he took on the club to where they are now. That does seem quite a lot if, and there's a big if, that is correct. Now, I am getting some stuff coming in from Chris Gosling. I don't know whether this is Kings Lynn or not, but he's saying it's an adult £21. Which to me would seem more appropriate. And I don't think I would have a major problem. I wouldn't have a problem with 21. Sometimes we'd have to be a little bit careful and make sure we're acting on the right information. 21, I wouldn't have a problem with. Whether they categorise certain matches A's, B's, C's, D's. I'm not even sure you're allowed to do that anymore, but I know that's what clubs did used to do. Calvin Hallam feels there should be a cap on prices across all levels of football. And he's saying they put the prices up for Wrexham and Stockport. Let's see what happens, shall we? Calvin Hallam also says Liverpool away in the Cup was class. Remember going back into hotel after the game and a load of Liverpool fans were in the bar. Thought we ought to keep our head down. Turned out to be a quality evening. Right, so we're coming up to an hour. Don't want to intrude too much onto your time this evening. Time has flown by this evening. Leslie, what are you going to do with yourself this Saturday? No football.
Generally, if there's nothing going off on the Saturday afternoon, I meet up with my friends in the pub and we watch the TV and the latest scores coming through. That's our form of entertainment. Well, I have been to a few away matches, enjoyed the afternoon. Now, probably be a good weekend for Notts, with what's gone on the last few weeks, with a few injuries, a good chance to get everybody back together again. Excuse me. Yeah, and I think there was a talk last week with the manager talking with Forest and looking to plan a match against their under-23 team.
Is it? Right, okay.
I don't know whether it's during the week or whether it's on the Saturday or not. I'm not sure, but...
Another example, Leslie, of whatever Daniel Taylor decides to spout off about, we can all tell it's a load of rubbish, and that the relationship between the two clubs is decent, and to the best of my knowledge, has always been pretty decent.
Yeah. Well, it certainly was on Saturday. And I know I've seen Andy Reid down at the games, and I know there's a good relationship going on with talk over youngsters at Forest possibly coming over here. So, the two clubs are working together very well.
Chloe, what are you going to be up to this weekend?
I've got a rare weekend in Manchester, so I don't know, see a bit more of the city probably that I haven't seen in the past 3 years. But yeah, I'll probably go and watch one of the games in one of the pubs and have a bit of a chill weekend for a change and do no travelling whatsoever. I'm not leaving Manchester this weekend.
Max Seth, because Notts aren't playing, I put forward that people go and support their local teams in their community. It really helps the smaller teams down the pyramid. Plenty to choose from in Nottingham. Baseford United will probably be the highest ranked team in the pyramid. Carlton Town, Eastwood are going again, aren't they? So there's plenty to choose from. Ian Butcher says, I'm going to Birmingham Saturday for the Human League gig. Calvin Hallam, I'm going to watch either Boston United or Boston Town for me whenever I can't get to Notts. So whatever we're going to be getting up to at the weekend, it's a rare weekend off for us. We will be back Monday. I think I'm right saying, is it Southend the next game we've got, Chloe?
Yeah, Southend. And then
I can't promise anything yet. Stanley Victor Collymore is a very good friend of mine from my days at Leicester. And of course, Stan now has an interesting role at Southend. Fingers crossed, Stanley might be appearing on our countdown to kickoff show. And Stan has got a very good story. Some of you may have seen it in his book about when he had a trial for Notts County when Neil Warnock was in charge. It's a very funny story. It's a very good one. Hopefully, he'll be able to tell it to you all next week ahead of our home game with Southend. But that's it for tonight. Suffice to say, another gratuitous plug. The link is on the chat at the start. If you're struggling, Les, have you got your book to hand? Are you going to hold your book up?
No, all I've got lying around. All I've got is my Hall of Fame certificate.
No,
I'm not selling that.
Yeah. So Les has got a book. So Google Les Brad's book if you need to buy that one. This one's only a tenner. There's an extra special offer. Call it a Cyber Monday offer. If you live NG3 or NG4 postcode, it's free postage, i.e. I will drop it around your house. Okay? So it's just a tenner. Anyone outside of NG3 or NG4, the book is only a tenner. but the postage is £312.50. Okay, because it's an heavy book. So just give an address in NG3 or NG4 and you get the book for a tenner, whatever. Okay. Thank you very much to everyone. We look forward to catching up with you next week. Chloe, thank you very much. Have a good time in Manchester. Les, have a good time. Did you switch your cuckoo clock off? We heard it loud and proud at 7. I didn't hear it at 8. So
yeah, it was late at 7. He's probably due in any time now.
Well, we'll get off before it comes out. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Take care for now. Bye-bye.